I looked at life like the wave. When the surfers start out, they don't know if it's going to be a big wave or not, but they have to keep paddling. I felt the wave from China was coming, and the thing is, if you catch a wave too late, you could get on the frill part and you get pounded down into the beach, or you can get on the top, but you never know how long the ride's going to be. It's really important that you don't try and do things all on your own. And I think that's one thing about us as entrepreneurs. We tend to be, in coaches' terms, rugged individualists. And
Yep.
so, but the reality is we do things together. Smart people said, I always hired people that were smarter than me.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is they always hired people who were smarter in certain areas than they were. That's the separation point for those who just want to continue to slog at it and work hard, and those who want to be able to take advantage of the leverage that other people can provide for them. Life's a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
So how do I want to finish strong at the end of the marathon. And I don't know when it ends. So if I don't know when it ends, I just have to keep going, right?
Hello, everybody. It's Regan with Unreasonable Health. And so glad you're here. And I just want to thank everyone in the community for the great reviews you leave, and especially those 5-star reviews, and also for the amount of sharing that's been going on. Because these podcasts take a lot of work, but they are incredibly inspiring and fun, and I get the best feedback from it. And I think you're going to love our show today because we're going to depart from our nerdy conversations around medical stuff and science. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some principles of life that relate to business and the practice of business. I've got one of my friends from Strategic Coach, Gary Mottershead. And the great thing about Gary is he's got 20 years of experience in the recycled rubber and industrial products industry. And the beautiful thing he's done is he's been able to revolutionize offshore business practices. And he's going to be talking to us about those today, about how he's been able to make reliable, high quality materials that meet or exceed Western standards. And you may think, well, what does it have to do with health? Well, a lot of you are business owners, and a lot of you are building something that you want to last. And one of the things Gary's done is he's built a business that has lasted because he's been in the industry for a long time. And if any of you have ever taken a swing at manufacturing or chemical engineering, you know it's not an easy business to enter into. And so what I'm going to do is go deep into the mind of Gary and pull out some of the things that he's learned along the way. He sold his first company in 1998, so which was the leading company worldwide at the time. And he's somebody who's an expert. In 1999, Gary founded the GCP Industrial Products Incorporation, and this company focused on supplying sheet rubber made from recycled tires from Chinese factories to the North American market. And it also became the largest importer of sheet rubber in North America. So the other thing he found is that there's two success factors that he attributes to this. One is establishing mutually beneficial long-term relationships for suppliers and customers, and also prioritizing quality to eliminate risks associated with international sourcing. So this risk-free sourcing solution, which he's trademarked, has earned customer confidence and facilitated over 100% growth in the past 5 years. GCP has been recognized as one of Profit Magazine's top 500 fastest growth companies in Canada for consecutive years. And in addition to this, Gary is also a coach for Strategic Coach since 1996. And I'm really excited to share this with you guys too. But Gary's always seeking innovative ways to help his customers and coaching clients grow. Having delegated day-to-day operation of GCP to his son, Gary focuses on staying ahead of the curve, generating new ideas and packaging his organization's international business expertise into processes that other companies can adopt. So you guys take out your pens and paper and take notes, and welcome Gary. Gary, good to have you here.
Good to be here. Can you hear me all right there?
I can hear you just great.
Perfect. Yeah, my microphone did. Well, I'm excited to be here. We've only met each other a few times, and mostly around the work that you do on age reversal. And so I'm excited to be part of this. And I usually do my own interviewing, but so it's different to have the tables turned on me here. So thanks, Regan.
This will be fun. So let's just go into kind of what you do on business. What would you say are like two or three things that you've done differently in your industry that other people just would never even think of? They'd feel like it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I'd say the number one, if I can step it out a little bit, because I have had a chance to coach a lot of people, is it, it, people have to have a vision. They have to have a vision of what they want and what they see coming. And if I go back to the early days I got started, and some of those who might be old enough to remember the ABC Wide World of Sports when they do the uh, surfing on Saturdays. When I was young, I'd watch the surfing go on, whether Hawaii or some other place, and I looked at life like the wave. And so, but when the surfers start out, they don't know if it's going to be a big wave or not, but they have to keep paddling. They have to keep paddling. You're a skier, I'm a skier. You don't know how deep that snow is going to be or how it might get somewhere, but you got to keep going and go find it. Well, anyway, I felt the wave from China was coming. And the thing is, if you catch a wave too late, you could get on the curl part and you get pounded down into the beach. Or you can get on the top, but you never know how long the ride's going to be. You don't,
Yeah.
when it starts out, you never know how long that ride's going to be, but you have to be willing to get on that ride. And so what I'm an I'm not, I wouldn't call myself so much an innovator as much as an early adopter. And I see what's in my mind, I see what's coming next. I trust it. And then I move on. And I said, this is going back into the 1990s. And I said, the wave from China is going to come. And I don't want to be on the underside of it. I want to be on the top side of it. And I started out to go down that path. But what I did really differently from that standpoint was trust people. And again, the Chinese were not ones that were noted to be overly trustworthy. Everybody told me when I got started, yeah, the first samples will look great. Even the first container might be good. Then you have no idea what's going to come into it after that. And I said, you know what? Because I had dealt with entrepreneurs a lot in my tire recycling, and tire recycling got me there. And I got over, I said, all right, um, I'm going to trust them and I want them to trust me. And the very interesting part is that they displayed their trust to me at first in the fact that when I went, I said, I can't afford to pay you. Okay. I'm starting out here. I'm actually 45. I'm starting all over again. I can't afford to pay you. You need to send me the product to Canada, United States, and then I'll pay you when I get paid. And they agreed.
Wow. They agreed.
They
Wow.
agreed. They agreed. And so they are still 50% of my business today. We have more than 27 years of relationship. I've watched them grow up and me grow up. Both Wang Zhu, Tiger, who I work with, have said that was the day that changed both our lives for the better significantly. And we've had that relationship. And so the reason for mutually beneficial long-term relationships, I said, we're not going to make money in one or two containers, full container business. But I said, I needed them to trust me and I trusted them. And then we just began this relationship, and I got told a lot of things early on, but a couple of them were that the first time that I went to China, I said, it's a social visit. I said, I'm going halfway around the world. I don't have a ton of money, dude. You're making this a social visit? Because they said they want to know if you can be trusted. They want to know who you are. And
Wow.
so they don't trust their government. They don't trust their police, but they need to trust people. I said, okay. So wherever they wanted to take me, whatever they wanted to feed me, whatever they wanted me to drink, wherever they wanted me to see, I just did that. Because they said, they know why you're there. You know why you're there. If they want to talk about business, they will.
Wow.
And so totally opposite to what we would do in North America. We dive
Yeah.
right in, we get it going. And I said, all right, this has got to work. So I said, all right, I will go. It's almost like, trusting the process. What is the process? Was there learning what the culture was? Well, that turned out to be Reagan to be invaluable in the sense that, and I've learned that I trust people until I have a reason not to trust them. And so you have my trust until I not. And very interesting thing about it, if you trust somebody and you tell them, and the information comes back around, you know where it came from. So
Yeah.
you don't hide anything. You don't hide anything. You're not trying to second guess. And that's what really kicked it all off. So recognizing that I wanted to be in the front end. The second piece that I was told is you could never tell I know this would be hard for a lot of North Americans, Americans particularly, to upset. You can't tell the Chinese what to do because they're the superior race. They've been going for 5,000 years. We don't have anywhere near that kind of history. We got a couple thousand maybe, but we don't have 5,000
Yep.
years. And so we always would suggest what we do. And we'd say, and the other thing that I did with that, we knew they wanted to be world class. We knew they wanted to get out of just being a Chinese supplier. So we said, all right, we'll make you a world class supplier. So we used their motivation to help make what we needed to make. And as a result, we just made quality the number one issue and stay on quality. And we have a very high 99.9, 99.8 level of quality for the products that we bring in, over around 500 containers a year. And that's because we all trust each other. We show them what we need to have done. And it's not us, it's the customer determining how that works. And that openness and that relationship, which I'm very fortunate to have had for more than 25 years, has really what's made it all work. And so there's it's just a different way than I use, not an adversarial relationship, but very much a cooperative supply, mutually beneficial relationships, if we called it. So those are the couple of things that I did early on that I'd say were different.
Wow. Well, and how many suppliers are going to fund your project? Essentially, I mean, here's all the material. Pay me when you sell it. I mean, that just speaks volumes to the way you presented yourself to them. Was there something unique that you did in your communication to establish that kind of trust up front?
Well, one is you never go to China alone. All right. And interesting, I've traveled in a lot of places around the world, and a bit of a side piece, but I don't ever travel in China by myself. One, it's just hard to communicate, not because I'm fearful of any sort. And so I got introduced first. So somebody introduced me. So again, just like having a referral, they introduced me. They didn't go with me. And so then it's really important that you don't try and do things all on your own. And I think that's one thing about us as entrepreneurs. We tend to be, in coaches' terms, rugged individualists. And
Yep.
so, but the reality is we do things together, and we do
Mm,
things as a support. And so since I was referred, I got in there, I got to meet these people, and it was almost like they trusted me because of the people they'd already done work with, and I was referred to them, and they said, okay, we'll take it. But I I left that first trip and said, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. We'll see. We got one container order in with them. Let's see where we go from here. So it just started from the first $20,000. So crazy, crazy,
wow.
crazy time.
Isn't that impressive? And then the other thing you did is you didn't bring your own agenda into the meeting because I'm sure you've experienced this where I have a vendor that I really want to work with, a new pharmacy or a supplement company, and then I get on with their CEO or whoever it is, and I'm just turned off because it's straight business. They could care less about me or my family or anything that I do personally. And I think business, like there's this beautiful merge of, I only bring on friends as clients now. I mean, it's like, it's so fun. And we host these retreats. We're doing a big retreat this week with Ben Greenfield, and we've got like 30 people, maybe 10 of them are from Coach. And so I love just bringing people together. And there's nothing worse than a sterile practice of business.
Yeah, and it's really we think about cultures, we take and the uncertainty of a culture, but the reality is entrepreneurs speak the same language all around the world. And I pretty well deal with entrepreneurs, even the people in China. And for the first 15 years that I was going there, it was very open, very capitalistic. The government allowed a lot of that. The last 10 years, not so much. But
Mm,
the thing is that we all understood we had to go make a living. We had to make payroll. We had to look after each other to be able to make it work, and we couldn't do it alone. So we provided the whole front end to the business in China that they didn't have. So nobody was overlapping each other. So it was really, once we got to figure this out, it was really kind of fascinating, and I enjoyed it. So they've been friends of mine. I know their wives. I've been to their places, but not everybody is the same. And you get to know people who say, well, they're talking, and then you go, no, this isn't going to work.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
Same
you
in,
just have to sort those things out. So like we only do business with people we like to be with. So
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? I got a lot out of that. Just that was a beautiful analogy with surfing, because AI right now is kind of that wave. And just real quick, and we don't have to go deep into AI, but what are your thoughts as far as where the wave is with AI, and are you adopting it into your companies or your coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind you asking the question at all because we've gone and we put together an AI chatbot to go on to our website to be able to answer questions. And I've got a book coming out shortly. It's called Nimble Future. And one of the chapters in there is about technology. And I've been fortunate because I've been on this planet a few decades to watch things. And technology never comes in any faster than people are prepared to accept it, even though it's out there. And I know, Regan, the world that you associate in, the world that I associate in, we see all these things, and it feels like there's a lot that's going to happen. But there's a couple things you want to look for. AI will certainly play a big part, but the whole value comes at the user interface. And
Mm,
so look for if you look at AI as a tool or AI as a particular teammate, you still have to train it. You still have to make it useful for you. And there's still got to be that interface between the technology that's there and what we're going to use. And so for those like yourself, you're watching it, you see what's happening. I think we can actually sort of just step to the side a little bit. We can paddle, but maybe we let a couple of waves go till we see how it's going to break. And when the interface gets better and easier to use, no different than the cell phone, no
yeah,
different than the way the computers are. The computers didn't get very far until Apple put its operating system and Windows put its operating system in. The internet didn't get anywhere until Mark Andreessen created the internet protocols that we now use, even though the technologies were all there. And so I'm excited by it, and I think it's going to really make a difference. So as long as you're not fearful of it, but I don't think you have to jump in with both feet. Just kind of dabble at it, try it. You need to experiment, but will it make a difference? Absolutely, it make a difference.
yeah. I think to your point on trust and relationships is, I find there's waves every day of new platforms for AI that you can use, and paddling on a couple of those waves, putting the energy in to catch them. I try to set a timer like 30 minutes with this app, and I make it fun, so it's kind of weekend projects. And then if I get something out of it, I keep my membership. If not, it's gone. And for every one that I've kept, I've probably discarded 25.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good approach. And I think for those of us in business, we don't always have a lot of time. You do, I do. That's where I spend my time mostly looking at new things that are coming along now. But but for most entrepreneurs, they don't. Therefore, you have to filter. You have to filter, and if you allow me, I filter technology again through a strategic coach tool called DOS, dangers,
Yep.
opportunities, and strengths. So what the technology has got to solve a danger for me. It's either got to create an opportunity and it's got to complement the strengths we have. It can't take me off track. And then I had another set of filters again, which I also use the terminology from strategic coach. It's got to make things easier, cheaper, faster, and deliver bigger results. So I
Yeah.
look at these things and I got those 7 pieces. And if I get through the dangers, opportunities, and strengths first, and then like, okay, is it making it easier? Is it making it cheaper? Is it making it faster? Can I do more with it? And that's how we look at even in our organization. If we're going to bring something in, how can we go from 500 orders to 1,000 orders? How we go from 1,000 to 10,000? What's the
Mm,
what's the way in which we'll get there without without creating more complexity? So,
wow.
but for me, I'm as a quick start, as you know, in a very low fact finder and follow through, I have to create general rules for myself, guidelines to follow. And so that's what I've done with technology. So if I can find technology that, hey, why we did the chatbot, we could find a program that could go in there and it can answer questions that are repeated over and over again that our team doesn't have to answer.
Yeah.
One
Good
step
for
at
the
a time.
customer, good for your team.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. And so Nimble Future, the framework of that, I believe you were the first coach outside of Dan at Strategic Coach. Is that correct?
The second one, yeah, but Russell Schmidt was the first. But yeah, he and I were, coming along path. But thank you for thinking of that. But I was just second along line there. So
Just second, yeah, which is so impressive. Um, but what have you seen as far as decision making goes in coaching? Like, what do good entrepreneurs do or the in decision making?
To me, the thing that good entrepreneurs do is they're always willing to learn, and they're always open to things that might be different than what they thought. And coming back to those two pieces, the third one is that they are willing to trust their team. And in fact, it's kind of interesting that when you have to trust yourself first. And just as you know, you have to trust yourself on what you can do and what you cannot do very well. And that's the first thing, as we say, all progress begins by telling the truth. And you have to tell the truth about what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then
Mm,
find the team of people, the smart people, no matter any books you read, no matter through history of business, the smart people said, I always hired people that were smarter than me.
yeah,
Well, the reality is they always hired people who were smarter in certain areas than they were. And they were
yeah,
also smart enough to recognize that. And I'd say that's where that's the separation point. That's the separation point for those who just want to continue to slog at it and work hard, and those who want to be able to take advantage of the leverage that other people can provide for them.
wow.
That to me is the big difference.
Man, you and trust is just a theme that keeps coming up over and over again with you. This is beautiful. It's such an important thing. Well, in entrepreneurism or even in capitalism, it's a system based on trust.
Well, I don't have any contract. There's a couple of contracts out there, but none that I really sign. We don't have contracts with their suppliers and our customers because as I was told by the lawyers a long time ago, and having spent lots of money with them, the paper is only as good as the people who sign it.
Yeah.
So if I don't need to have it signed, or if I need to have it signed to protect something, that tells me something. And if I
Yeah.
don't need to, then why would you put the paperwork in place? There has to be things written down. You have to have clear understandings. I don't dispute any of that. But I think and the other part is that of entrepreneurs is those who we all have a gut sense. I'm not talking about it
Yeah.
from the medical side. We all have a gut sense and a gut feeling, and we have that for a reason. And we need to trust our guts. And so if you go back over if everyone goes back over their time and they say, man, I had a funny feeling about that person. How did it work
Yeah.
out? And I
Right.
said, no, I felt really comfortable. How did that work out? And that's a learning that we go through. So um, anyway, I've been blessed to coach more than 3,000 people over that 28 years or so that I've been a coach, and it's still exciting. It's still new every day that I go in. Every workshop has its own characteristic to it. So
That's beautiful. Well, let's go into a nimble future a little bit because for those of you who don't know, Gary and I are both lovers of skiing and outdoor sports. Gary's got a goal to ski 75 seasons, and he's at season 64. And so you definitely need a nimble future to make it 75 seasons on skis. So let's talk about some of the things you're doing physically. And then I want you to dive a little deeper into the book and and give us some details about when it will be released and things like that as well, if you don't mind.
no, 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 no. I I think for me, if I can say that I'm hoping that what people will do is they become self-aware. And, long before a lot of the longevity came into place, is that if you were aware of what was going on with your body and what was happening, then I think you could make habits and changes. And so for me, I always felt that what did I want to do? I remember the place that we bought, the chalet that we bought that looked up the hill. We bought it in 1989. And I looked up and I could see the top of it. It was August in that time. And it was in bad shape and needed to be fixed up. And so we did all that. But I said, I want to be here, when I'm old. And my kids would joke. And I'd say, my wife's name is Karen. Hey, Karen, I'm going out skiing now. And Gary wobbled his way down the stairs and get out and get going. And I just said, you know what? Here's my goal. My goal is I want to go to bed and not be aching. I want to get up in the morning and not ache. I'm not likely or no plan to run a marathon, but I just want to be able to do all those things. And I didn't have grandchildren. Now I do have a couple of grandchildren, another one on the way. And I want to be able to get down on the floor and run around. And this past weekend, I was figuring out how I can ski backwards while holding a hoop for him. And can I do that? And I go, yeah. And I watched the instructor do it. So okay, I think I can do this. And
Cool.
so my goal was really very simple. I just want to be able to consistently do these things year after year, not be afraid. And I came to a turning point. I was in my 50s at one point, and I was asked to go on a cat skiing trip into
Yeah.
BC. Great. We had great snow, everything else. And I remember being on the hill and being afraid. And not because I didn't have the ability, I didn't have the capability. I hadn't put myself in shape. I hadn't been there. And I looked down and said, I know I can do it, but I can't do it. I don't know if that makes sense to you. It
Sure.
just wasn't there. And I said, I don't want that to be the case in my life. I said, and so I resolved right then that I would change things. And I resolved that. So I made a commitment when I was 60, as I was saying before we got started, to take my kids helicopter skiing. And I wanted to do it on my birthday. My birthday is April 1st, so it's more than 10 years ago now. And I went out there and I wanted to ski with them. I could go on other trips, but I wanted to be with my kids. So I had to start getting in shape. And I was training with somebody. We had to do this and, get in shape. And I could do it. Like, as I said, I don't know why I couldn't keep up with my kids, who I joked and said that their legs didn't add up to my age, but when I was skiing with them at the time, but I could do it. And then we went to Whistler for a few days. And I said, all right, I want to be in better shape at 65 than I was at 60. And then at
Yeah.
65, I said, can I be in better shape at 70 than I was at 65? And so
Wow.
I never move it on, never move the target so far out that I couldn't get there. I was too big a one. So that got me looking into things. That got me looking into, I have a naturopath now. And I look at various supplements that we take. I'm very fortunate. My daughter has a corporate wellness business. And so we go training with her. She trained as a kinesiologist and did personal training first, but she only really trains a couple of people, including her mother and I. And so I just said, you know what? Life's a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
So how do I want to finish strong at the end of the marathon. And I
Mm,
don't know when it ends. So if I don't know when it ends, I just have to keep going. Right.
right. Yeah.
So that's kind of the philosophy that I've had, Regan.
And 64 seasons in, that's exciting. Are you getting a little better every year? I mean, if you're going
Um,
to be skiing backwards, that's
you know what?
impressive.
Better. Let's put it this way: I don't feel any different. So, relative to my peers, I still ski way too fast, and
Yep.
I still ski mostly in control. and
That's
and and
great.
I hope that people don't get in my way. You know what? I'm holding my own, and I look at that. If we can hold our own, as we get into our 70s from year after year, then I consider that as good as getting better in that sense.
Yeah.
I want to go out and race. I don't want to go out and do those things where I could actually measure myself and time it. But and I can't keep up with my children who are in their 30s and those who raced at almost national levels. But yeah, I don't feel out of place. Let's put it that way.
Well, in Chinese medicine, there's a term called compressed morbidity. And so you talk about, life is a marathon and you want to finish strong. Finishing strong, to me, is when you die fast, right? When you get to the end of, hopefully a really long life, a ridiculously long life, but you're doing the things you love the day before you die or the day you die. And that's
Yeah.
and that's the goal. So yeah, compressed morbidity.
Totally agree with that. I'm not a person that wants to linger around. We watched my mother, both my parents died of cancer. My mom at 68, my dad at 83, and mom suffered a lot longer than my father did. He went pretty quick. Pancreatic cancer, 8 weeks was kind of start to finish. But um, my mother-in-law lived to be 97, and it was slow, and got down to like 65 pounds at the end. And mind was still there, but body wasn't. And just watching that whole process just was very, very painful. And I just resolved I don't want any of us to go through that if we don't have to. So how can we prepare ourselves? But you know what? They just stopped moving. They stopped moving. They bought a condo, got in an elevator, used escalators, and didn't walk around, didn't keep moving from the age of 60. And I go, that's not a good scenario. So like you have to keep moving. You have to keep going. And if you can do that every day, then you're bound to be at least maintain what you've got going. So.
Yeah, absolutely. My grandfather skied until he was 80. And he had he was exposed to Agent Orange in World War II, and so he had a gut, his gut perforated and killed him pretty quick. So yeah, but great. He'd still be skiing today if he didn't have that, if he didn't go septic. But it's so cool. He was my hero.
Well, the thing about skiing is, in particular, maybe other sports, is you can't ski if you're afraid.
Yeah, it's true.
If you
Yeah.
have fear, doesn't matter what speed you go at, you're going to get hurt.
Yep.
And so I go and say, all right, so you asked about getting better. Well, can you keep pushing the fear back? Can you keep pushing that back?
Mm.
And it's pushing a boundary. And so my wife stopped about 15 years ago because she was looking after her mother, and she said, I can't afford to get hurt. So the fear comes into it. And I look at it and say, you cannot ski no matter what your speed is, no matter what age you start at and where you are at, if you're afraid of it or what hill you're on. And so I said, okay, I just,
Right.
you got to put that away. And when the time comes, I have to stop. Hopefully it doesn't come, because the, if I get hurt, it will not be pretty.
Right.
It won't be something minor.
That is great. Well, let jump into your book coming up. When are you going to release it, and
Well,
what are some of the things we can expect out of it?
yeah. So the book should be released by March, and maybe even I was hoping we might get it done by the Free Zone Summit, but it's really been my timing taken up. Kerry Oberbrenner of Ignite Soul Publishings is going to publish the book. He's written the forward for it, which has been absolutely brought tears to my eyes. I mean, who is this guy that he's writing about? And so let me give a bit of background. The Nimble Future began actually as a book called 2020 Hindsight to Foresight, and I started writing
Mm.
it in January of 2020. And of course, we know what happened come March of 2020, what happened there. And then we finished the rest of it off with the writer that I had it by the middle of 2020. And then I didn't have to, but I let it sit because there was a lot going on. People weren't ready. And it actually sat for about 2 years, coinciding with my wife and I were to go down to Barbados on our 40th wedding anniversary in April of 2020. And of course, I committed 3 weeks before the pandemic hit. My money's hanging out there with sandals out there. So we finally got that trip in November of 2022, 2.5 years later. So when I was down there, I said, I'll read the book again and see if it makes any sense. And I read it and said, no, I still like it. This makes sense. We edited again over the early part of 2023. And then I said, okay, let's go. And the reason is, and it got renamed from Hindsight to Foresight to Nimble Future, because it was really a lot of things that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. How do you think about technology? How do you think about, I talk about fear, or belief. Do you have fear or belief? What's your vision? And I really help people um, has set boundaries, set borders around what are they going to take in. There's so much information that comes to us in your field, in my field, no matter what it is. What are we going to pay attention to? So the subtitle for Nimble Future is reinterpret your past, protect your present, and engage in your future. And
Wow.
what I've found is that people have their past, but they bring too much of their past with them, and it weighs them down. And I want them to be like the rocket ships that jettison stage one, jettison stage two, so they only carry the essences that they go forward and get it into orbit, which is where everyone wants to get up into that orbit. And we've got to protect our present because there's so much that's going on in our world. What are we filtering it through? Well, you want your past to set yourself up for that. What have you learned from it? What can you bring forward? And then the other thing that I've noticed is, particularly as we went through the pandemic time, everybody's time horizon got shortened. We got shortened from looking long term to shorter and shorter, even the next week, the next day. Some people, how do they put one foot in front of the other? We're coming out of that, but we're not there yet. Even the entrepreneurs that I see, Regan, aren't there yet. They're not thinking that much further ahead. And one of the problems of thinking further ahead right now is that the world that never went back to normal. It never went back to pre-COVID, and it's not going to. So we can't expect that. So mine is almost a way of a formula to say, hey, Always look at your past, figure out what's worked in that past. What do you want to bring forward? What helps you learn? What keeps you confident today? But also, it was the expression, I think attributed to Abraham Lincoln, the best way to predict the future, best way to know the future is to, best way to predict the future is to give me
Create
this.
it yourself. That's
Yeah,
it.
predict it yourself. And so I go, this is what we need to do. We need to put the vision out there. We need to do the future. And then we need to say, based upon what we've decided, whether it's your health or whether it's your business or your personal, what's the information that's relevant to this? And
Mm,
so, and there's all sorts of experts that are out there, and let those experts do their pieces and pull from them what you need to do, what you need for your world, and will help you make sense of it. And so it's 14 chapters. Each one has its own heading of different things to look for. I talk about technology. I talk about change. And Jeff Bezos has got the greatest quote that kicks it off. He goes, everybody asks me what's going to change in the next 10 years. And I think this is one well known. And he said, what they don't ask me in the more important question, what isn't going to change?
yes. Yeah.
And so what isn't going to change? Relationships aren't going to change. What are things that are important? So I just help people when they're looking at it to just get grounded into that their experience is valuable, what they think is valuable, what their future is important to them. And what they want to take in from everybody else is really got to be related to what they see as their vision and what they want for their life.
Man. Well, what a powerful book. And I'm hoping you'll put some things on trust in there. I'd imagine you probably got a whole chapter on building trust.
I believe I do, actually.
Because man, I got so much out of this conversation, Gary, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to meet with us today. You've got a great podcast yourself. Clarity Generates Confidence. And tell us a little bit about what the podcast is about, how people can find you and get connected to your podcast.
Yeah. Well, you can find Clarity Generates Confidence at any place you find. Look for podcast, Spotify, of course. GCPindustrial.com. That's our website for the company, GCPindustrial.com. And the podcast can be found there. The podcast is also defined just like the book in a sense, how to think about the future, what's going on. And I get great people on. I know you're going to be a guest of mine, which I'm delighted to have. And I get to interview great people on what they're thinking about and bring that to the audience. So they get to see the world. And it all got started back in 2020 when we didn't know how to put one foot in front of the other. And I said, well, let's help people think about this world. What are the others thinking about it? And so I just would interview, like you, people I know, people who have great stories and great insights to share.
Man, well, go find Gary, everybody, because I think you'll agree with me. He's very insightful, super articulate, and I just really appreciate you, Gary, and all the work you're doing.
Well, Regan, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to having you back on because I believe you're going to do that the same and more for my audience as well. So, Regan, thank you very much for today.
You got it. And everybody, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you share it with your friends, family, loved ones, and really appreciate you being part of our community.